Hey there everybody, Joe here. Thanks for tuning in again. So first of all, thank you very much for 100,000 subscribers. I think I said that in the last video, but it's very exciting. I'm super happy to finally be at that mile marker. The Harry Potter painting has been suffering, let's just be honest. I have not been doing a good job at capturing the likeness of Harry Potter like I wanted to. I have to say that I did overestimate my ability to do this, and I'm finding that this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. So you're witnessing me take myself to school right now for how to capture the likeness of somebody with paint. I'm studying hard, and it's really stressing me out at moments, I have to admit. You get to see my progress along the way, and at the end of this project, I will say this is the painting where I learned how to paint a person's face. I mean, this is the project because I have never studied so intently I'm done guessing. I know that I've done some okay jobs on some portraits in the past and some bad ones, more bad ones than okay ones. But I'm done guessing. I get to a point with my painting where I'm just done with guessing. I just need the answers. And that's what this project is about for me. But you're watching me wrestle through it and definitely do a bad job on some things. So right away, I've got a valuable comment here. Ray Gremlin says, he looks a bit old. Well, I took that to heart and I really looked into it. I mean in a good way. Because I agree, he did look old, and maybe he looks a little bit old. No, I don't think he looks that old now. Maybe just a little bit strange still, but getting better. I'm so much happier with how it is now. I was looking into the size of the eyes and looking into the things that I know cause the appearance of age, the boniness of the nose. I changed that. I softened the nose out so that it's a lot more rounded on the bone that comes across the nose. And I made the cheeks rounder. I made the head altogether bigger. I realized a lot of the reason it looked very strange was because the face was big in proportion to the whole outline of the head. And I feel like I've made that same mistake a million times before, even though I showed on the whiteboard how to use the guides. I didn't do that with this painting, and I guess I should have, but I think that I noticed that guide could be used in that way after I'd already started this. I noticed things along the way. Amy says, love your videos. It gives me a nice compliment. Thank you, Amy. Here's something you might try: do a small pencil or charcoal study before tackling the big mural. Well, I agree completely. I actually advise people to do that exact thing. Do all your troubleshooting on a small scale. When it comes to this kind of paint, I'm so familiar with it that it's easier for me to troubleshoot and sketch just with the paint. I just sketch with the paint. It's just as quick and just as effective, except it's in color instead of just with black and white. If this was for a customer and I was burning up the hours that are money, then it'd be a totally different story. But this is me trying to learn, and I learn best when I just go straight to the color. I do pencil study. On the first video, I showed my pencil studies, which also were not that great. And I'm learning on this job what to look for. I don't want to rabbit trail, but I'm noticing I'm seeing things now that I didn't see at the beginning. That makes me think that I don't know if it's the same for everyone as it is for me, but I have to think that it could be, where your sensitivity to things can be exercised and strengthened. And I'm finding that I'm becoming sensitive to the things that I spend a long time staring at and working with and moving back and forth. It's becoming an element that I now see when I look at a face, and that I can quickly pick out and say, his is like this, hers is like this. And next time I go to draw a photograph, well, no big deal. That's going to be way easier. This is especially hard because I'm trying to learn the structure and then put it together without using one photo. I don't think it's fair to still call this painting Harry Potter from memory. I know the others are titled that. I don't think it's fair to say that because at this point I've looked at just like thousands of photos. So everything's from memory if you think about it. If you're not just tracing, if you're looking and then drawing, then looking, then drawing, I mean, that's memory, just shorter memory. But drawings are always using and you know, relying on the strength of your memory to either duplicate or identify and put shapes in the right way. Well, it's an ongoing struggle for me, but I completely agree with Amy that it's valuable to do the troubleshooting on a small scale if your end goal is to get done as efficiently as possible. DSCH says, "Hi Joe, sorry, I really need help. I have problems getting one color into the other." Now I think D is talking about blending. So, you know, I'm sorry that I don't completely understand this question, but blending is always a struggle. One color blending into another. You know, that if you're working with water-based paint, you just have to go fast or work in a cold temperature. You know, I keep this room at 60, 65 or so, because if it's too warm, the paint dries faster and it doesn't give me as much workability. And then I've talked about on other videos where blending, like you do, you know, there's all of these blends in this face. I pick two colors. You know, I don't just say I'm going to do this area of the face. I look at two colors that are on some area, and I say I'm going to blend between those two colors right now. And I pick my battle so that I'm not trying to blend between four colors at the same time. And this is a combination of layering. You can see on the video maybe that it's a combination of blending in some cases and then using the paint real thin, so it's layering it over the top as well. So I get the blending of just a real thin layer along with blending two wet colors together. And I'm still planning on going over it with oil base, at least for the face, because it's just so much easier to make everything as soft as I need it to be and not have unwanted edges. I'm noticing this, that the lack of detail is a good thing in a face because your imagination fills it in. As long as the detail that is there is accurate, then your mind fills in the rest and sees the person that it wants to see. Well, as soon as you put some subtle detail, I mean, it's just subtle. You just put the lightest little line across the cheek, some little shadow, and then all of a sudden, you know, your eyes are trying to make sense of that, of what it means on that face, and it makes a shadow, it makes a three-dimensional shape, it makes an expression. We're just so sensitive to faces, and I'm realizing that every little thing I do has the potential to make my painting worse. You know, just because it's good at one point doesn't mean that it won't get worse if I touch it. Man, my computer's these automatic updates, so annoying. Installing update 1 of 112. You have to laugh at this. You know, I'm sitting here in a room with nobody in it but this camera, and I'm looking at this camera like it's a human. Then my computer just stops while I'm in the middle of my thought, and I feel all the emotions of somebody who's been cut off in the middle of a conversation with a real person, but I'm just in an empty room, mad at a computer and a camera. This is kind of like my telephone, you know, I look in the camera, I feel like I'm speaking through it right to you. I feel like you're here. Baron von Taco Cat. Baron von... Man, have I been saying that name wrong all this time? If you make the hand reaching for the snitch a little bigger and bring Harry's hairline down just a little bit, it might help. Very cool painting though. Can't wait to see how it turns out. Well, I took your advice. You were right. I made the hand bigger and I made the perspective more in line, and it definitely looks better. So that was good insight. The hairline, you can see I brought it way down. I showed less of his forehead. Yeah, the painting before looked like he had a little bit of a receding hairline, like an older guy. So definitely good insight there. Mind Gem says, crazy talent if you didn't need a reference photo of the guy. Well, thank you for that nice compliment. The truth is, you know, you're all just very nice to me. I'm realizing that now after this video. I can post a not so great painting of Harry Potter and you'll still say all these encouraging things. So thank you. But this is definitely a huge challenge, doing it without going straight from one photo. I will say that. I don't recommend doing it. If you've got a job to do, if you've got a project to do, someone wants you to do a person, if you can just use one photo, I mean, that is the way to go. And I would even say, if I was just after the final result, I would just find a photo that looked like this, similar in the angle. I'd use that photo and I would only tweak it from that photo using other photos. You know, that'd be a good strategy. But because I just have to know, I'm done not knowing. I need to know all of the different shapes that are on a face that we immediately recognize and associate with who that person is. And so I just had to go from scratch and just make it the hard way. Definitely doing it the hard way. But I recommend doing this kind of an exercise just to train yourself to see these things. I'm finding that it is a extremely eye-opening exercise. And if you can bear through the embarrassment of seeing yourself do a not so great job at painting a person, you know, it's well worth it to do the exercise. By the way, D, thank you for the shout out from Vienna, Austria. That's very exciting to know that you're watching all the way over there. I actually did drive through Austria once. We went on a vacation from Frankfurt, Germany, drove down through Austria, did a quick loop through Venice and back. I mean, we just got a rental car for a week and just drove through. We hardly stopped to see anything. But beautiful places. I mean, I was so impressed with the beautiful countryside and the old architecture too. You know, I really want to go there again. So, just to say, I've been to Austria. Even though it was just a drive-through, I've been to Austria. I think the valuable takeaway from this for me is start big and go small with the shapes. Learn the shapes of a face. So on the face, I have this shape that goes eyes to chin, right? So, or let's say eyebrows to chin. And this is, I've only started this strategy just since this project. I do a triangle from eyebrows to chin first. You can see that that makes this recognizable shape that goes around the face. And I don't look at the smaller details within that at the beginning. I just look for that triangle and look for the general proportion. I look where the nose is in relation to that triangle. Now I can look at my little baby Zayden's face and I see that his nose is up high. It's way above center in that triangle that goes from chin to eyebrow. It's a great starting point. It gets you set off on the right track. If I go a dot, now I'm going to draw a rectangle around that dot and try to make the dot right in the middle. Okay, a rectangle like this. That was a pretty good try. Pretty good try. But it's a little bit to the bottom and a little bit to the left. It's not right in the middle. So now if I make a rectangle, even if it's a crooked rectangle, it's much easier to say that the middle is right there than it is to do the small detail and then do the big shape around it. So likewise, I'm finding that for me, it's much easier to identify the bigger shape, that is the eyebrows, the chin, and say, okay, the face is something like that, and the nose is a little above center, or maybe a little bit below center, maybe way above center, maybe way below center. It's much easier to do that than it is to do the nose and then try to decide where the eyes are in relation to that nose, and then try to get the mouth in the right spot, and then hope that those proportions are the same as they would have been if I would have just started with the bigger shape and worked inward. Because if I go like this, and then I know that the nose is a little bit above center, and then I know that the eyebrows are right at the top of that, it's much easier to say now with the eyes, those are, you know, about right here, in relation. You know, I can look, are they closer to the nose? Are they closer to the eyebrow? Are the sockets big above the eye? I can make that judgment in here and have the nose and this top line for a guide on where, you get my point. It's much easier for me to work from the larger to the smaller, but I didn't do that with this painting. I didn't. I started right in with just kind of looking at everything as a whole, and worked. I worked from this shape that's on the face first, and then built the jaw structure around it. And I'm finding that that is not the easiest way. The easiest way is to start with that exact pattern. First the eyebrow and the chin, get the nose, then get the eyes where they are. So eyes are right here. Then get the mouth. Where is it in relation to the nose and the chin? Is it above center, below center? Get the mouth. Then get the cheekbones. Where are they in relation between the eyes and the nose? Is it above center or below center? It's right here, right here. Okay, so then you come down like this to the chin on that one, and then get the jawbone. Is it tapered inward? Is it below or above the mouth line? So you get a jaw line right there. And then working by this method, I get a very good guide for myself early on in the picture, and every stage of the picture resembles a person, and I find that much easier to work off of than trying to see a person in a guide that looks like this, you know, things that are non-human looking like that, you know. It's a mathematical approach, I guess. So you get the point. I'm finding that to be very valuable, but I didn't really know that when I started this project. So this is something I've learned along the way. Like I said, you're witnessing me learn how to do this, and I'm just sharing my adventure as it happens. I always loved drawing hands, and so now I'm painting hands, but I'm very familiar with the anatomy and the proportions of a hand, and you know, it's less strict of guidelines than a face. You don't have to narrow it down to an exact person. You know, it'd be hard to know the difference if you drew one child's hand and another child's hand if you don't really know them very well. So if I know the basic structure of a hand, then then I can put it in any position that I want to by just understanding, just like the face. I always think of things in a more cubical geometry kind of a shape, and then I just cut off the corners in order to get the more organic curves. But I imagine this hand as, you know, a block that is the palm and it's in perspective, and then the three blocks that come off that are the joints of the fingers, and I'm familiar with these different positions. So I don't paint this hand in perspective looking that way just because when I imagine a hand, I imagine it to look good. You know, it doesn't work like that. I've familiarized myself very much with what those things in my imagination are. So, you know, it's kind of like tapping into, I think now we're getting into my opinion again, but I think it's like tapping into what happens subconsciously and making it conscious. I think your mind has to use a lot of information in order to make accurate identifications, because we have to write lengthy computer programs in order to draw those differences, make those identifications. So I think what happens subconsciously, it saves you the stress of having to think about it. It's really nice having that machine of your brain working for you and doing things for you that are helpful. But when you want to make it conscious and you want to think about it and create something this way or that way, so I think that you're learning what is already happening, and then taking those elements and learning how to know what your mind is imagining, because you don't always imagine things intentionally. Your mind's just doing it, but you don't know what it's doing or how it's doing it all the time. And so you know, okay, it's imagining a hand, but I know consciously that the hand is like this. So that's why, you know, I'm starting to sound like I'm way out there, but the point that I'm trying to get at is that is a lot of value to associating a conscious understanding of the geometric shapes that make something with your natural imagination that just occurs, or whatever natural talent you have that can just picture something. And some people more naturally are able to duplicate what they're imagining, but everybody falls short at some point. Nobody has the ability to 100% accurately duplicate everything their imagination has seen. At least that's nothing that I've ever seen, and I know that I don't. I want to say that as encouragement, that when I'm imagining a hand in perspective, I have the familiarity of every single bone on this finger, every pad on this finger, the curve on the top of it. I've memorized it like I memorize an alphabet, what those are and what they look like in perspective. And I think that you would find, if you spent a lot of time drawing something from all different angles and appreciating all of the different shapes that are on there, at first it seems very strange, but repetition makes it not seem strange, meaning unfamiliar. But the more time and repetition you spend doing that, it starts to become familiar. All of a sudden you're drawing shapes that you've drawn before. And I want to encourage you, if you're trying to build up your understanding and ability to generate shapes, maybe you're into drawing characters and creating characters, whether it's painting or drawing, it's valuable to know how to make a hand or an arm or a shoulder in different positions. And that ability comes from associating your conscious understanding of those geometric shapes and how it fits with the positions that you naturally imagine. You got to fit them together. I think we all have like a three-dimensional, what do you call it? Like kind of a topographical map. What would you call a three-dimensional map that's just the elevations and shapes of things? I think when we first come into this world, it's blank, but it's there. It's three-dimensional space. It's like a grid waiting to be filled. And as you learn to reach out and touch things and see what it looks like when something's at this distance, your eyes say, when I go like this, it's that close. When I go like this, it's that close. And your mind starts to build up this association of your senses with that built-in space, that grid that your mind says, in this grid, my mind is here. Your mind has to place itself in that three-dimensional space. Your mind knows that your mind is in this. All right, now I'm really getting out there. Let's just stop. Let's just stop right there. These are the things I think about all the time. I wonder, how is it that your mind knows that your mind is in the three-dimensional space? And while everything takes place inside of your mind builds a space to put itself inside of. Isn't that crazy to think about? All right, I'm going to stop. Hey, if you haven't heard already, there's a Patreon page now for Mural Joe. And if you really enjoy the videos and if you would like to contribute, then you can go to patreon.com/MuralJoe. And my hope is that you would consider paying a small amount per month. $1 a month is the minimum. I wish it was less, but definitely that is not my expectation. So I hope you continue to enjoy the videos and tune in next week. Soon I'll be headed over to, in just 3 days here, I'll be headed over to Plano, Texas to paint some clouds on a ceiling. So I'll be excited to be on a real mural job. Again, I've been spending all my time on YouTube videos. I'll keep you posted, and we're about due for a personalized patrons only video. That's the only reward I have on the Patreon page. My passion is to make things available, not to restrict things. So I'm not going to great lengths to try to say, if you give a lot, then I'll do this. If you do this, there's all these levels of rewards. I'm trying to just be able to keep doing what I'm doing and hope that those of you who want to will have that platform to chip in. So thank you very much if you choose to do that. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week.